for the last and final panel discussion, I invite our own Professor Shinjini Bhatnagar, Professor of Eminence THSTI, to coordinate the last session. And over to you, ma'am.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I know it's end of the day for many of us and almost lunchtime for the others. So we're going to go through this very, very important session. And I'm hoping the two panelists are there, Dr. Shirshendu Mukherjee and Mr. Sachin Arora, and my co-host, Vidhya.
Yeah. I'm there, Shinjini.
Thank you, Shirshendu. Vidhya, do we have Mr. Arora with us?
Yes, Dr. Shinjini.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, welcome. So welcome to the last session of the workshop, actually. And I have great pleasure in welcoming Shirshendu, who is not only he's a very important man in BIRAC, very important for all of us because he holds a lot of funds. And I'm going to let him tell us what all he controls in BIRAC so that we all have his full attention for what our requirements for funds are. So Shirshendu is a trained microbiologist and has been part of BIRAC Grand Challenges India, which is with the so BIRAC is the Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, which is a very unique organization within the government of India. I think all of us know about it. For some of our friends and collaborators who are not familiar, BIRAC is a very different entity within the government of India with a lot of different rules for funding. And so Shirshendu is there and he's heading the Grand Challenges India program, which is with the BMGF. So Shirshendu wears two hats. And I will now request Vidhya to introduce our other panelists, Mr. Sachin Arora.
Thank you, Dr. Shinjini. I'm very happy to introduce our other...
Vidhya, can I just interrupt 1 minute? Vidhya is my colleague at THSTI. She is head of the grants division in THSTI and deals directly with all the funding organizations and supports the faculty for all our various grants and has been a big support for Calipus. Thank you, Vidhya. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Shinjini. I'm very happy to introduce our another important panelist today. As a mark of difference, we have invited representative from a professional services industry, KPMG. KPMG Global is a well-known player in various fields, and Mr. Sachin Arora is a partner and head of India Lighthouse in KPMG. As a brief, KPMG Lighthouse is Center of Excellence for Data Analytics and Artificial Intelligence. And Mr. Sachin is a partner and head of India Lighthouse Practices. And it focuses on artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, and analytics solution. As a very short brief to Mr. Arora's excellent CV, prior to joining KPMG, he has headed the Amazon Web Services Analytics business for India and SAARC region. And also he has been personally involved in building data lakes, AI-based recommendations and optimization engines for several organizations. The reason he is here with us is his profile on being a mentor and seed investor to various divisions of AI. And we would be very happy to hear his view of AI in healthcare, if he has any experience in this area, and also provide his view about industrial view or investing view in this area to our young entrepreneurs. Welcome, Mr. Sachin.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Arora. So I'm going to go straight into asking both of you some questions which we've got from our participants. There were questions even during the breakout sessions about funding. And Shirshendu, I'd start with you because with your vast knowledge of heading both international and national funding within the country. That's a unique kind of position that you've had. How do you view BIRAC's what are your views on how BIRAC handles funding in AI? So, what is it that BIRAC would like to do with AI? What is its scope for both national and international funding?
Thank you. Thank you, Shinjini. And once again, thanks to you and the entire organizing team for the invite. And I bring greetings from the chairman and MD of BIRAC to all of you. A very good evening to all of you. So before I start, I would like to give you a very brief 2-minute introduction to what BIRAC is and how it is linked to the innovation ecosystem in this country, and then specifically to the Grand Challenges role, which I think you will all be interested in. So BIRAC was created in 2012 by the then visionary leadership of late Professor M.K. Bhan, who had this idea to bring BIRAC to build the innovation ecosystem in this country. And the first managing director of BIRAC, the ex-secretary of DBT, Dr. Renu Swarup, was the first managing director of BIRAC. And the idea of BIRAC is not only to fund, though 60% of our time is doing funding, but the rest is to enable the innovation ecosystem in this country. Now, how do we do that? Is that it starts with not only supporting innovation programs through funding mechanisms, but to handhold the innovators, providing them proper mentorship through starting from very basic to how to write grant application, to how to defend grant application, to then how to run your grant, then how your grant is monitored. If you have any regulatory program into your application, how to manage that, IP manage that, and your exit strategy from the grant, and how to take a follow-on grant. So I think this sort of an enabling mechanism, the leadership, when it was established, was thought to that BIRAC should not be a typical funding or disbursement agency, but should be an enabling agency. And that we do with the various arms within BIRAC. We have a very large incubation network. We have a very large mentorship network. We have very large pool of experts who advise on regulatory, IP, and business plan development. So that is on whole, and we fund, and it was kept purposefully in arm's length distance from DBT, though our funds come from DBT, but it was meant that it should be very iterative, and it should listen to what the innovation community, the research community needs. And we should modify ourselves and as per the need be. And we should design our programs in such a way that what the research or the innovation ecosystem needs in particular research area, research themes, we should bring out calls. And that's what how the visionary leadership thought of BIRAC. And we will be celebrating our 10th birthday next year. And I think we have literally created and triggered and catalyzed the innovation ecosystem through our networks. BIRAC was also mandated to create international partnerships. And that is where I'll come to tell you how we work on data and AIs. And the international partnership, that was established that, again, the visionary leadership from Dr. Bhan's idea was to bring in international collaboration, not for funding alone, but to learn international funding practices. That was the idea. And then we got, first, we all know DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance was established, which is managed separately. And then, the DBT got in relationship with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the program management unit for that was established within BIRAC, and BIRAC is the implementing agency for the Grand Challenges India program, which is a part of the Global Grand Challenges program. And following that, Wellcome Trust also is a part of the Grand Challenges India program. So we have programs. We run almost 21 programs till now. We are going to launch 4 more programs in this year before March 31st. And one will be the prestigious Professor M.K. Bhan Fellowships for mid-career biomedical research and innovations. And in that, I'm very proud to inform you and very delighted to inform you that data and AI will be one of the key mandates of selecting innovators in that space. So Grand Challenges India, why it was designed and thought was what India challenges, what India faces. Globally, the Grand Challenge is how it works is a country of a specific challenge, what the country faces. And on that basis, the challenges are modeled and a call is announced. Our largest call, which was under the Grand Challenge framework, is ACT, the All Children's Thriving Program, which looks at how to reduce maternal and child mortality through various, and we have almost 10 programs funded under that scheme. And number of you who are attending this have been the beneficiary and have been proud awardees of that program as well. Now, coming to data, since 2017, 2018, we have been inviting and supporting innovative and impactful ideas relating to, Internet of Things, IoT sensors, big data analytics, cloud computing, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. And we started around 2017. We announced a call. 2018, we got the application on robotics related disciplines. And Grand Challenge India has been working on data repositories, and Shinjini leads one of them. And through that, we have been working, getting how to interpret the data. The knowledge integration efforts of the foundation and DBT partnership was launched in 2016, way back and which has reached to very high quality data sets. And principal investigators we have around 23 principal investigators with longitudinal and cross-sectional studies. The data sets were harmonized to build a super data set that we call it India HBGTK, Healthy Birth Growth Data Repository. And this was really very, very useful and will surprise you to hear that 23 data sets have more than 3 million or 380,000 subject counts, and key repositories have around 20-25 data from Indian studies itself. So that was a very good start which was made. And following that, we have been clearly, and we are going to announce the second call on data management and data science very, very shortly. As I was telling in the early session, BIRAC is going to launch a big initiative in the coming months called the Jan Care Challenge, where we plan to select 75 innovators who are working in AI-based solutions using data. And that will be really useful. And this has been advised by the government to announce this call. And we would like to, use the already existing data or data to be generated to develop AI tools as well. So this has been one of our key focuses. And we would like to hear from the innovators as well, what sort of call they need, what sort of data they have, so that we can tune our, calls in such a way that will be beneficial. Shinjini, I will stop here and I will go forward as the discussion progresses. Over.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shirshendu. Vidhya, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shinjini. Mr. Arora, we would like to know from you, as a mentor for and seed investor for various startups, what are your views about industrial funding or any form of other than the general research funding in this area, and what will be your advice to the young entrepreneurs in this area? Thank you.
Thanks for your question, and thanks for inviting me for this stimulating conversation. I'm great to hear the views so far. So yes, I'm a very avid investor in startups. As an investor in startups, we all do it to earn more money and make more money. So that's just the hidden cause of everything. But yes, if it fuels innovation, it gives you double satisfaction that A, you're making money, B, at the same time, your money was involved in innovating stuff. But I'd just like to sort of divide two types of funding. And I know this meeting or this AI healthcare have sort of two sides attached to it. One is we work for a social cause, use the data, machine learning, AI for social cause versus for a commercial cause. Now that pretty much sort of differentiates academic funding versus the industrial funding. So like, for example, a person or a venture capital firm who wants to invest in a startup they really want to see a multiplier gain coming out of it. And that multiplier gain can only happen um, if that idea of innovation is distributed. So if you really look at startups which have become unicorn or decacons, big companies in India and globally, they become on the back of using internet as their distribution engine, and using the intelligence of knowing the customer more and more intimate relationship with the customer, and have been able to do commerce with them. Now, the product that they could be selling could be related to healthcare, could be related to other things. So if you really look at the industrial funding, it is more towards reaching out the distribution engine, which was earlier very physical in nature. You had to go to hospital, you had to actually take a cab or a scooter or a vehicle to go to the hospital physical, right? Now there are various startups which facilitate doctors to be talking directly to the client. And on the other hand, so this is more from the industrial funding point of view, which is more solving the problem of distribution. But if you really look at the social cause, for example, I was reading on the one of the websites that biofortified banana, which has been invented, is to elevate vitamin A and iron deficiency in Uganda. Right now, this was an outcome of academic funding. Now, if you really look at how this academic funding helped, it was a great innovation to come out with a cost-effective banana, which if people eat, can have deficiency problems solved for both iron and vitamin A. Now, is this a very commercially savvy idea? Perhaps no. But is this a great innovation for human mankind? Absolutely yes. So that's why these two innovations go somewhat parallel, not hand in hand, until smart young entrepreneurs could actually marry these two ideas. Means they could create a really good product or the service in the healthcare sector using data and machine learning, and use the internet to really distribute that idea, impacting not just tens or hundreds, but millions of people. So to bring these two streams together, the ideas that needs to be picked is unsolved healthcare problems with the reach of internet, using data and AI to be intimate with the customers and impacting the lives of millions. So my advice to the young entrepreneurs would be that while you may be sort of affected with the financial outcomes of a startup, which is coming more from the industrial and commercial side of things, don't lose the sight of the social cause and marry the two idea and have a wider reach to the market. Very clearly, there are so many different areas that it is happening. I keep reading on the new startups which are solving tumor related problem, cancer related detection using machine learning and AI, skin related, people can click pictures and then send it to their doctors, and then that can basically tell whether they have any disease or not. The beauty of internet, and which is now becoming very cheap, and the cloud computing, which is can use the supercomputers or machine learning and AI, is that now we can have massive truckloads of data created from the devices, which is a cell phone or a watch or a normal camera at home, and process those images to find out what are the patterns for a particular problem and reach millions of people. So if I were to say to young entrepreneurs listening to this conversation that there's so many areas which are still unsolved, figure out those problems that can be solved by these technologies, and not just leave at the social cause, take it to the commercial implementation and reach millions of people. That is when you create a few dollars and multiply with millions, becomes millions of dollars, right? So don't leave it at just the social cause, take it to the commercial implementation. I'll take a pause here.
Thank you, Mr. Arora. That was actually I'm going to be the devil's advocate for Shirshendu. Shirshendu, what does the government feel about this? What do you feel when you fund?
Number of times. When we fund, and that has been taught to us by our mentors, that there are various steps of funding. We start from funding pre-proof of concept research to proof of concept research to a validation research to a research and then to a commercialization research. So as you step up these ladders of funding, the risks increases, and it is de-risked basically. So the highest risk is at the pre-proof of concept and proof of concept research, and that there we are there to take the maximum risk. Out of every 100 project we fund at a pre-proof of concept or a proof of concept level, there is a success rate of 5 to 7%. So we know that out of the 100 projects we fund, only 5 to 7 or 10 maximum, if you are very right, have a chance to go to the next level of funding. So that is where the risk we are taking. But saying so, it doesn't always mean that we look for success. Success is not the outcome as a funding agency we look for, because we are within the government. We work with the philanthropic funding agencies like the Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust. It is the outcome of the research which is very, very important. A negative angle is also a learning from a funding program. That's what we look at. So it is not always that we look for successes, but a research outcome which tells us that this works or this doesn't work. COVID has been a very good example of learning all these. Also, we look at all our grants application, where we, at the earliest stage, the success is only 5 to 7%, and we know about it. But what happens is the researchers who come into and apply for, say, the other 90 or other 90%, at least pass through that entire cycle. They know how to start young researchers or young startups know how to write a grant application, how to approach a funding agency, how to defend themselves in front of a committee, how to run the program. So that capacity is built. That is important, and that will really help them to plan their next journey, so that they move to the next ladder, their success, they taste the success in the next step. So that is what I think we all should look. And my advice to all the young researchers or startup will be that never think that at the first round you will get funded. Firstly, never get disheartened if your application doesn't go through. You should learn from what was the learning from the entire process. And when we give out a lot of time we see that when we give out the committees, why your project was not funded, a lot of people take it very, very negatively. Oh, it was not funded, the committee didn't like it, they didn't understand, or whatever it is. But some of them take it very positively. And they come back incorporating the outcomes of which the committee has given them, their outcomes, they incorporate that and come back in the next cycle. So 60 to 70%, my statistics says, when they come back with putting in those, recommendations, come back and they move through the next step. They get funded so I think that is the learning, and we should always, my advice to the young researchers will be that never get, if you are funded in the first cycle, it is very nice, we should enjoy that. But if you don't take the learnings and come back to it, don't leave it. I'll not do that, I'll change my line. But never think that. Come back again with the stronger application. Definitely, when one door closes, the other one opens. It was well said by Swami Vivekananda, and I remember that. And the second statement which he told, and it is in my room, a day you do not come across with a problem, take it for granted that you are trotting on the wrong path. So problem will be there. We have to cross that and move ahead.
Thanks, Shirshendu. I'm keeping a watch on the time. And so I will ask one question to Mr. Arora. And then we do want if any of the attendees have a question. So while the participants are sorting while thinking of a question. Mr. Arora, how much of your entrepreneurship encouragement or funding for startups, how much of it is health related and how much of it would be maternal child health related? Is there an interest in that?
So there's a big interest in this market, right? So I don't want to put a number because every number looks small to me. But I see a lack of ideas in the market right now, which I'm quite surprised of, because you said maternal health related, right? If
maternal child health, because this whole workshop is around maternal child health, and
so, given the fact that every woman, every female gender goes through this process, I would say most of them at least, and then very few innovative ideas I have seen in the last few years. So is there a potential in the market to create a unicorn or a decacon by creating a product out of it? Definitely yes. So if somebody comes to me with an innovative idea in this space, so how do we rate startups, right? How do we fund startups? I'll just give you a sense of that because that will help you answer this. People often think it's idea first. Actually, idea is the last that we look in a startup. The first criteria that we look in a startup to fund is actually the market size. What is the total addressable market in which this startup is going to operate? Because typically, when a startup picks up work to do, it cannot be very flexible in the market. If it is chosen a market, it has to be in that market. Like for example, if today somebody comes to me for doing a great idea in internal combustion engine, I will not put a penny on it because electric vehicles have taken over, right? Although small market, but the underlying market is a very big reason. So maternal child healthcare is a massive market, untapped. So from the market point of view, is it exciting to a venture capital partner? Answer is yes. The second is the founder, the credentials of the founder, and what has he done in the past to have credentials to run this kind of a company, and have we seen some failures in past or not? Because typically, we all know that if every successful person, I'm actually worried that one day when he sees failures, how will he react? So it's always good to get people who have seen some failure in the past because they're used to it, and then they're still in the success searching board. The third thing that we look in a startup is the idea. So because idea among the three things is the most flexible thing. You can't change the market, you can't change the founder, but you can always change the idea. If that is not working, I'll do this. If that is not working, I'll do that. So you can flip through ideas. But underlying market definition is very, very important for startups and for funding. So as you explained to me about maternal health, child healthcare, it's a big untapped market. And I feel that not just in India, it could be a great global impact-making startup that can be there. Unfortunately, I do not come across a lot of good startups in this area. So is there a market for it? Yes. Is there a lot of dollars waiting for such startup? Answer is yes. Are there enough good ideas in the market? Enough good startups floating, scouting for money in this market? Answer is no.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a
Shinjini,
slightly different.
Shinjini, if I can add your
please.
So, how many percentage of healthcare related application which you receive? And I can tell you from my experience, when we have an open call, so around 60 to 65%, if I can, 70% up to, we received application related to health, and which is a broad area.
And maternal child health?
So I can tell you with a very very recently we did medical technology grand challenges, medtech grand challenges, which was by invite. And out of the 24 applications which were shortlisted, 9 were featuring the maternal and child healthcare domain. So you can calculate the percentage. It was not by design. It was just by merit why it came in, because as Mr. Arora just said, idea, team, and the gap analysis, what was the unmet need in that space. That was the 3 criteria which was put in by the global team. So out of the 23 application, 9 came. One of the angles of how to prevent, how to monitor, how to this, around 9 applications. I just checked you asked my question, I went to my database and checked the record and I answered. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirshendu. I'm sorry, we'll have to wind up the session because we had said 6:30 to 7 and we've been doing very good with our time till now. I don't want to break that chain. So I'll hand over to Vidya to close the session and thank both of you. Vidya, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shinjini. My sincere thanks to Dr. Mukherjee and Mr. Arora. And as a grants coordinator for this institute, I would love to have an elaborate session where the understanding stretches from the coordinator to the investigator, and in fact, a link of the gap analysis done by the funding agency in the form of a Sparsh grant, which the Sparsh one, which in fact the HSTA was funded, where there was a elaborate kind of clinical immersion for gap analysis was done in this area, and a bridge to a kind of a professional services and industrial and investor would be the next step, and which probably BIRAC could think of facilitating, and we would be happy to introduce investigators to such a bridge. Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee and Mr. Arora, for giving a glimpse and also a decent depth for important perspective from a government funder and an industry player. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry we couldn't. We were planning to have one representative from the international organization, but unfortunately the person could not join. But I think you covered most of the stuff that we wanted to discuss. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Deepika for our last 10-15 minutes of the conclusion of the workshop.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I once again request you to stay on and to summarize the take-home message and the way forward and the messages we've learned from this workshop. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deepika. I'd request, so what we've done is, on behalf of the 2 teams, which is Garbhini THSTI and the Calipers University of Oxford team, and on behalf of Alison, Aris, Ashok, me, of the teams, we've just put together some summary slides for the participants. We have some really dedicated participants who have stayed till the end, and I'd like to thank them for that. So this is a summary slide of what we had started out with, which was development, evaluation, and reporting strategies of AI algorithms in maternal child health. So we were able to discuss study design, planning, and conduct of a study, had interesting discussions around validation and how internal and external validation is necessary, how sample size is critical, and and that was really an eye-opener for many of us, how it's to be done, what are the numbers required. We discussed reporting guidelines and how it can be done transparently. The baseline characteristics of participants should be discussed, intended use must be reported. Then today was a very interesting day on the translational pipeline. How can this go beyond just the research, go in research to publications to actual commercialization? And finally, we had the perspectives from funders and what are the opportunities of funding for academic studies as well as startups. So this was what we were able to do. I don't know how much of it was helpful to all of you. We are hoping that many of you did learn something new from this workshop. What is our way forward? We will, of course, be happy to invite collaborations for co-development of AI tools in maternal child health, for looking at independent validation studies, because through our collaboration, we are developing tools and it would be interesting to validate them further. Our second objective has been capacity building on AI in healthcare. This is the second of our series of the workshop. We did one last year just before the pandemic, and Alison alluded to that workshop in her introduction. And now we have this workshop, and so we're now going to go further, initiating engineers to healthcare basics, training of medical graduates in data science. So we will look around more workshops and see if we can get funding to do these workshops of capacity building. Continue the conversation via the social channels. The next slide, Condi. Yeah, so our public engagement, a lot of questions have been asked whether this will be up on the YouTube. Yes, Condi, if I'm right, it will be through THSTI website. It will be on the YouTube and it'll also be up the workshop proceedings. Sorry, I meant. I will also be up, on the Garbini website.
Here? I remember you.
Sorry. And we have the Twitter handles of all the people listed here who've been part of the group. More can be added there. So the proceedings we can engage with whoever would like to engage with us through these Twitter handles. And the next slide. Okay, so this is a very big thank you from both our teams, particularly from, as we said, I just like to thank from the teams of the two, the Garbini and the Calipus teams, and all the young people who made this possible. Alison, Aris, and I sat there, and Ashok, four of us sat there, and we trimmed and edited the agenda, and we discussed the agenda, but the hard work was done by all our younger colleagues. We have Alice from University of Oxford, and Alex and Jen, and from THSTI, there was Condi, Ram, Devanshu, Varun, and Deepika, and of course, Vidya. So with this, a very, very big thank you to all the participants and to all the people who made this possible. Thank you very much. I'll let Alison and Aris and Ashok, if they have anything else to say. Before I end, I just want to say that we had requested Professor Vinod Paul to join us today and say a few words, not as the current position he's in, but as the leading neonatologist and pediatrician of the country. And he was not able to join, but sends his best wishes. So with that, request the other members of our team to say a few words before we just wind up. Thank you.
Thank you,
Alison?
Shinjini. Yes, thank you very much, Shinjini. I think you've done a wonderful close, so I don't want to add too much. It's been a real pleasure to work with your team on putting this whole event together, and I very much enjoyed it, and I can see from the interactions and discussions, I think lots of people enjoyed it. So thank you very much for leading on this. It's been excellent. Thank you.
Alice, Ashok, do you want to say anything?
Well, there's not much left to be said, except that there seems to be so much to be done. And I'm truly looking forward to that. Thank you so much, Shinjini, for putting this together from scratch and for making
No,
it
we
a
all
huge
did it.
success.
Everyone.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
a lot of people worked a lot harder. Thank you.
Aris, do you want to have the last word?
Oh, I'm not used to it, but I'll have the last word. I'm delighted to have had so many people join. I'm really grateful for everyone's time, and really encouraged also to see the engagement of industry. You know, not so many years ago, ultrasound and more generally in maternal newborn child health, very few big companies like GE, Philips, who we've heard from, and others were engaged in this field. And we were saying, but we need lower cost devices, and nothing was happening. And now there is movement, and I'm really encouraged by that. And it's due to activities such as this one that I think that's happened. So thank you, Shinjini, for hosting us, and Alison for organizing, and Ashok for bringing the clinical view from the field. But more importantly, thanks to all the delegates and the outstanding keynote lecturers and all our contributors for have been, I think, really fantastic 3 days. Nothing more to say than that.